Welcome everyone to part 2 of the Golden TAYA. In part 1 we explored actually the spiral tower, the connection between the ziggurat here in Crest, Colorado and Glastonbury and some other locations. You might wonder what that has to do with the Golden TAYA. Well, it has to do because it is a very dynamic energy part of the system that is creating, or that is rather maybe not creating, but a part of the energies that flow through all these Golden TAYA land areas. And so now we're going to explore a little bit about what is the Golden TAYA. Now, essentially, that name was given to me and some explanation of it as early as 1980 or 1981. I mean, it was really early on. It was when I was living in Colorado before. Excuse me, my throat is still acting up from the flu. I was living in Cortez, Colorado, where I'd been. I don't like to use the word sent because nobody sends me anywhere, but I was invited, shall we say, by the ultras to move there with my mother and I for some spiritual work. So that's where I was when I first was told about the Golden TAYA land areas. And but in let's see, what it was in 1995, while in Crestone, the last time I lived here, that I received more specific information about it all, and I kind of put together all the years of work that I had on this information, which was sketchy, bits and pieces here and there, and then asked for more information, and that's what came about in this 1995 article for Temple Doors entitled The Golden TAYA Allotments. So I'm going to read to you from this, and with my commentary, my current commentary on it, if my throat will hold out. Let's hope so. The Golden TAYA allotments are the areas of Earth's surface which will be ascending through the veil into the fifth dimension. I don't know why I'm calling it the fifth dimension here, but that's what I'm saying. At the period of time referred to as Light Principle 40 by Thoth and his Merkaba group, Chariot of the Sun. According to Thoth, the currently projected, now that's currently from 1995, occurrence would be between 2015 and 2025. Well, I remember he gave me that date a long time ago, but only when he was pressed. It was like there is no date, that can be come up. And I said, can't you give me some idea? So he gave me this, but he gave it to me with a caveat, and that was that this is a period of time when these energies are going to start accelerating. And when this type of energy accelerates, does that mean that it could actually occur during that period? It is possible. And that's the way he put it to me. I really don't explain that here, and I should have. But that's the way it was originally given to me. So obviously we're getting really close. We're already in that envelope of time. And look all the things that have happened and are happening. Are we actually going to go through the portal in 2025? Before then, I'm personally, I don't think so. I wish I could say yes. It's possible, of course, but I think this is more a period of time of intense preparation. And now that I know about the pyramid's radius matrix, well, that's a phase that has to happen before we can go into the ascension mode. So, this date period is very wobbly in regard to actual, projection of time. And if I were to ask for a projection of time now, I can guarantee you I would be getting a much further ahead date. Does that mean it's always going to be put off? No, but this is why Thoth does not like to give dates, because we're a work in progress here, and our timelines are shifting and all kinds of things are going on. But we can say very safely so that we are in between 2015, 2025. This is a major period for our development toward the whole ascension process. It's not some magical pixie dust you get sprinkled and then you ascend type of thing. This is coming in from our internal being. And that's why it's so difficult to pinpoint a time frame. Okay, to continue. On February 17th, 1995, we were experiencing some very powerful yet strange dynamics. This prompted us, meaning Simeon and I, because I was with him at the time, to go to Thoth and ask what was going on, as there seemed to be an unidentifiable component in the energy we were experiencing that day. Thoth replied that this was the first day of the passing of the guard of some of the golden TAYA areas from the control of the fallen lords, the Nephilim, which I'm now not using that term so much because the Nephilim, which is an old biblical term that Thoth sort of pulled out of a hat to use for this, they have beings among them that are working for us, So it is kind of difficult to use that term anymore, although Thoth was very explicit about that at the time. That's why I call myself a translator, and I believe every channel should call themselves a translator, even if they're going into a mediumistic state where, they leave the body and the other being comes in. Perhaps that's a little more the other being, but they're still working through the mechanism, the experiential body of that individual. And so, not to make too fine a point of it, but my use of the term Nephilim was orchestrated by Thoth originally because he was trying to give me an idea of where, of using this biblical term of these particular beings that came upon the planet. Now we can call them Anunnaki. There's other terms we could use. They're all archonically influenced, if they're not all, but I mean the ones that are, let's say, meddling in our affairs and trying to control the situation rather than allowing divine order to determine how they act, behave in our environment, in our reality. So if they're going against that, then they have an archonic influence. So I'm going on and on about this, but I think it's really important. So the control of the fallen lords, so it's saying that the golden TAYA land areas were more in control of the archonic influences. And on that day, February 17th, 1995, well, that was a day that we were feeling it. That was a day where it was coming together enough in a conscious way that some people on the planet were beginning to feel a change, a difference. It's not, again, a magic wand. Okay, yesterday it was not this way and today it is. But that's the day that it kind of came together, at least in our experience. So it was the passing of the guard from that energy envelope of the quote unquote fallen lords to the Metatronic lords, which would be in this case the Solarians representing that. He indicated this process would be occurring until approximately March 12th, 1995, so it's just a few months from then, for the initial 20% of the golden TAYA allotments. As Thoth had mentioned the golden TAYA in 1981, and now here they were again, we felt it important to ask some additional questions regarding the golden TAYA's purpose, history, and dynamics. So this is what came about from that. My question was, can you give us some history on the selection of the golden TAYA allotments? Who was involved in the decision as to what was to be considered golden TAYA? When did this occur? So Thoth states, those whom we call the Sunbow clan, also known as the Kyi'Ra of the Hopi prophecy, were responsible for these decisions. They were master builders sent from the confederation of stars known as Orion, but primarily they came from the blue star Rigel. This occurred after the first fall of heaven, prior to the end of the Hyperborean epoch, which resulted in the ascension of a portion of Atlantis known as the Holy Isle of Ruta, at the final cataclysm that destroyed the remaining continent. The Sunbow was assigned by the Ennead, Council of the Divine Seraphimic Intelligences, to determine the present, future consciousness vectors of Earth and assign light ascension matrices for specific sacred land areas under the mandate of the violet flame. It was understood that not all of Earth would be viable for translation at the time of LP40. The regions containing certain light codes were those to be appropriated back to the Metatronic full light spiral at the time of ascension. The rest of the Earth would be given up to the entropy of the fallen elements. Now, as I've stated before, I'm sorry, you're probably hearing my new kitten playing all over the place here, but there's not much I can do about that, short of chloroform, so he's just going to have to be in on it. Let me see, what was I mentioning there? The planet itself, it's not, as I've said many times before, when we're talking about ascension, we're not talking about rocks and boulders and people floating up into the sky. You know, that's not what it's about. It's about light code transference. And all of this, human bodies at the time, the golden TAYA allotments, the land areas that are supposed to go, they literally become light codes that are just switched into the higher vibration, and that's their package. That's where they're carried to the other side. And so I'm going to, oh my goodness, now he's playing with my hair. I'm going to turn this off for a minute, just a moment. All right, let's try this again. So when we think of ascension, what we're really seeing is a conversion of energy. Possibly that would have been the better term, but people kind of identify more with ascension. And I believe that's the reason that Thoth encouraged me to use that term, but only with the understanding that it's just a term that we can kind of grasp onto, that there's much more to it than what the word ascension might mean to us. But that's a starting point. So to continue with Thoth, the Earth was designed as an outlet for karmic pathing, evolution toward grace. It was decreed by the archangels of the seventh heaven, the seraphim, cherubim, and wheels of fire, that a mandate should be established for this return to grace, which the universes were moving through. You must understand that Earth's plight is of an inner design, as part of a greater universal return home. The universal mandate is that of the violet flame. The Earth's role is given several sub-mandates under the violet flame. One of these mandates is the golden TAYA, which concerns the allotment of certain light-encoded areas for the LP40 ascension. The first step in this process involves their transfer from Nephilimic guardianship to Solarian guardianship under the authority of the wheels of fire, containing several Merkaba groups such as Chariot of the Sun. At the time of the Earth's creation, it was known that the fallen lords are angels of Lucifer. And again, that's a very loose title because there's a whole lot about Lucifer that, we don't generally think of. But okay, we're calling that here. Including the incarnating Nephilim, would enter the Earth spectrum and claim guardianship over its basest elemental state. This was allowed by the God Source as part of a larger process designed to create separation in order to redesign the fragments of self back into unity. Within the mandate of the violet flame, the fallen lords could not lay claim to anything but the basest elemental state. The higher regions, including the Metatronic gate, would remain within the guardianship of the Solarians. It was determined within the sub-mandate of the Golden TAYA guardianship that even the elemental substance known as your world would be turned over to the Solarians prior to LP40 ascension. This must be accomplished in order for these Golden TAYA areas to ascend through the Metatronic gate at that time. In order for the souls of Earth to ascend through the gate, 20% of the golden TAYA must have their guardianship transferred prior to the light schematic of the Emerald Pyramid being relinked to the other 6 Holy Doma pyramids. This latter activation occurred March 12, 1995 through July 15, 1995. The transfer of guardianship is a process encompassing many levels of being, requiring cooperation from the nature devas to the higher angelic dominions. Now let's put on the brakes a minute and let's take a look at this from the perspective of 2017, from Maya's perspective of 2017, because I'm a work in progress as well, and I'm going through all of these stages of understanding or receiving all of this material, and you know, it's not all there every time I receive something. It's like, this is a piece, okay? We move to another year, another time, this is another piece. And it starts fleshing in and becoming more pronounced and more understandable. So first of all, the big question is, well, why did they give these Nephilim control of anything? And who is they? Well, we can say the hierarchy, the greater overlords of light, the creation lords. You can go into a lot of different fields of who, but let's just say they for now. And so why did they do this? Now there's a hint in one sentence, just one sentence here. We go back to, let's see where it would be. This was allowed by the God Source as part of a larger process designed to create separation in order to redesign the fragments of self back into unity. Now that sounds like kind of a simple sentence, but actually what it's talking about is very vast, and we can't really get into all of that in this one discussion, but and I don't know it all either, but what I do feel that I know, even that is too big. But essentially, we're in a process of natural motion from an initial opening of the lotus flower of existence. Now, Thoth does not agree with the concept of the Big Bang, not as it is presented. There was a moment, and it did happen, but it wasn't a Big Bang. It has a more delicate, more dimensional scope to it. And we're not going to get into that right now. But out of that, there's a process of alchemy, which is separation, uniting, separation, uniting, separation, uniting. And every time it comes back together, it becomes more refined. So separation is not a bad thing. And that's why dualism is not a bad thing. We have not done dualism well on this planet. And that's why we can't stand it, because we go, oh my God, I just want to get away from all this duality. Well, we really don't want to get away from all this duality. We want to refine it. We want to balance it. We want to understand it and to make it work for us instead of against us. But duality is a part of the process. So is separation. But separation on a path to greater unity, rather than to flailing around in the corner somewhere like the Energizer bunny that's gotten stuck against two walls, you know, banging his little head against the wall because he can't find the path back to unity. So this is what this is addressing right here. And this is why these lower states of experience were given, or souls that were in that lower states of experience were given a platform in which to work. You see, from the higher developed beingness of the God Source being, or whatever you want to call it, there's no evil. There's no awful, horrible stuff. Yes, we can create our own hells on this world, but there are beings that are lost from their path. There are beings that are not fulfilling their purpose on various levels. And these beings are being helped to do so by giving grants, so to speak, of energy areas in which to work, to redefine themselves, to come back to a fuller state of being. So that's why the quote unquote Nephilim were given this lower state of elementation as their control field to play in. Now, we decided to come down and join them. I say we, the souls that came out of the lotus and came down. And that's a whole nother story why we did that. But we came to their playing field. They didn't come to ours. So that's an important thing to understand. And then also, this has to be returned in increments in order for this whole ascension thing to take place. And that's what we're in the process of doing now. So from my 2017 perspective and all the information I've learned since 1995, this is what I'm sharing with you that makes this, I believe, I hope, a little clearer, a little easier to understand. So let's continue with the actual text. Excuse me for turning a page here. So it says, from March 4th to 11th, 1995, the David Kingdom in the Golden TAYA lands, in which the guardianship is being transferred, will experience a rush of Metatronic light programming energy to the soil, rocks, crystals, and plants from within the center of the earth. This will later be absorbed by animals and humans. The inner earth realm is more engendered with this light potential than the surface. The earth's true program for ascension lies within a crystalline plate, the innermost layer of the ice canopy near the central sun of the planet. This plate is called the Corpala and projects a natural hologram into the center of the central sun, Atoma, of the earth. This in turn sends a signal or directional beam through the time continuum, that's the Rana time wave, connecting the second millennium, that's the current consciousness, to its pathing toward the third millennium, which is the future consciousness. We could call that the new earth star reality or consciousness. The Corpala was inserted into the ice canopy by the sunbow plant. All soil, rock, crystal, plant forms within these initial 20% of the Golden TAYA are receiving their doctrinous signature, etheric light body programming for the new earth star reality. This will not be detectable until the growing season is underway, at which time a new etheric presence will manifest in the living earth of these ascension regions. Each new bud will be awakening from its sleep to a new consciousness full of light beingness. This will be the beginning of the time when the unicorn returns. Okay, now we have the unicorn. Let's see if he talks a little bit more about that here, because I'm not sure what he means by it. The physical manifestation of this new programming will be a gradual unfolding process. Weather will become more stable and less differential in these areas, although at first some of these regions will experience clearings requiring more severe climate changes and some cataclysmic activity. One such area is the Salt Lake Basin and the surrounding Wasatch Mountain Range. Although this is a Golden TAYA and in the future location of a holy city, it will have to undergo a massive cleansing before this can take place. This area is not among the first 20% of the Golden TAYA to be returned in guardianship to the Solarians. When angelic guardianship is resumed in the near future, this region will experience upheavals as part of its ascension preparations. The Salt Lake area is a very, very important area in all of this. And it is a place I was sent to live 4 times. I used the word sent, requested to go and live in 4 different times, and I did. Now, that's a whole other topic. And when he's talking about, the growing season and getting back and all of this, he's not just talking about that year and spring and everything. This is a bigger picture, much wider than this particular time frame. But that particular time frame in March of 1995 was a pivotal point for certain things to take place. It's kind of like, when we think of our human body, scientifically, biologically speaking, think of all the things that are going on in there right now. I mean, all the stuff, all these microbes and this and that, and the DNA is doing this and that. Can you imagine? I mean, it's just overwhelming. And that's going on in just one person. Well, the earth is a biological system, and it's a lot bigger than one person and a lot more complex. And it's connected to this whole Ascension dynamic program that we're all connected to because we're involved with the earth in that process. So there are a zillion different things going on, and they're all important. So the things that I have been bringing up for all these years are among them. Why do I get these specific things? Well, I don't know. But this is what comes up into my field, and this is what I share with you. But there are a zillion things going on, and that doesn't make any single one of them less important. So I just thought I'd mention that. So then I ask, please give us some clear information regarding the role of the golden TAYA in the planetary ascension process, and are they the same as the major ascension centers of the planet? So Thoth says, the golden TAYA are the major ascension centers of the planet, the only areas so designated. These are areas such as the Valley of the Golden Disc, which is the Crestone San Luis Valley, Colorado, that are major activators of this energetic, but all golden TAYA are equal in the degree of ascension they will assume. This is necessary in order for them to merge into the new Earth star world. However, all golden TAYA areas will not ascend within the same moment. The entire process for both land areas and souls upon them will continue for 15 days in linear time of that age. Well, of course, that's really fast when we consider everything else. But that's when everything is set. The whole stage is set and the button is pressed, so to speak. The golden TAYA are the physical earth upon which the new Earth star will be designed. They are like seeds containing the memory of the God Self and the return program that is the software for the new matrix of consciousness. So then I ask, please explain how the golden TAYA allotments will be able to ascend through the veil at LP40 prior to the rest of the planet, and will those outside of these areas be able to ascend as easily as those within them? And Thoth states, only the golden TAYA, the incarnated and discarnate souls gathered upon these areas at the appointed time, will ascend through the veil. The remaining planetary Earth and its souls will face the final chaos, being reabsorbed into the evolutionary cycle once again. These souls will be given a new beginning point on another planet, starting once again up the ladder of spirit. Do not fear that some souls will be left out of the ascension simply because they are not in the right place at the right time. All souls in that period will be under the violet flame mandate. If that soul's higher self has chosen the ascension, they will be where they need to be for that process. In other words, you don't have to get out the map and say, okay, where do I need to be? You're just going to be there. Maybe you're called to the bed of a sick loved one at that moment, or maybe, you've been living there all along, but, whatever it's going to be at the right time. Ironically, there will be many souls who will rush into the golden TAYA out of fear, feeling drawn to a safe place, only to become disillusioned and fearful of the challenges in releasing their elemental magnetics. They will then leave these areas before the ascension time, if they're not intended to be there. The gatherings of souls who have chosen ascension as their path rather than returning to the orotronic half-light spiral in another planetary realm are what we refer to here as the Anubis gatherings. It is important to understand that there is another form of ascension which is ongoing at this time on the planet. This is what we call the heart ascension. It is the raising of one's heart consciousness vibration, which in graduated levels is freeing individuals from the entropy of their fears and illusions. This form of ascension is of absolute necessity in order to achieve the full transcendence of LP40. So in other words, we ain't going nowhere without the heart ascension. That's the main thing. The rest is, the final stuff. Getting the body at the right place at the right time, which really turns out to be right no matter what if you're in the heart ascension vibration. Could you give some examples of the golden TAYA allotments and their approximate boundaries? Are they triangular in shape? The golden TAYA represents in all 20% of the Earth's surface area. That's current surface area. Nearly all of the inner Earth will ascend. As we have stated before, we anticipate that approximately 40% of the souls incarnated at that time will choose ascension. This is a choice made at the level of the higher self of the soul. There will also be disincarnates who have not yet lifted through the veil who will choose to ascend, and some will not. You know, in other words, I probably won't be alive then unless I come back in the flesh. So I'm thinking my ascension will probably take place on the inner, you know, the etheric level, I guess you'd call it, the other side, whatever. And it's also possible I'm using me as just, you know, an example, that I could go there in advance because we're taken out of the time frame kind of thing that we live in. We can all, like, if you keel over tomorrow, your soul could just simply go on into the new earth experience because there's not a time definition on that. Or for whatever reason, it could wait and go at that appointed time. Okay, so we continue here. Also, there are those souls already in the higher spiritual heavens who will choose to reincarnate in the Metatronic body of the new Earth star, and others whom will not be free of the magnetics of the incarnating cycle of the Ortron half-light spectrum, returning to the lower physical once again in other planetary worlds. Okay, so then the physical shape of the golden TAYA differ vastly. Their size does not conform to any specifics. Some of the golden TAYA are as small as 3 to 5 acres, while others encompass many hundreds of miles. We will give a few of the ascension lands here in approximation only. So these are just a handful of places, okay? Grand Tetons, Wyoming. Does it mean all the Tetons? I'm not sure, but that's the area anyway. Sedona, Mogollon Rim, Arizona. Mount Shasta, California. Klamath Lake, Oregon. Crestone, Baca, San Luis Valley. And even that, the San Luis Valley, some little edges of it are not going to be included, like Alamosa. Alamosa isn't going, so we used to kid that, Simeon and I used to joke that it would just be our luck we'd be shopping in Alamosa when the Ascension Day comes. Of course, that is a joke because we'd be where we're supposed to be. In any case, the Zion National Park, Utah, which is, of course, one of the, we'll get to that in a moment, but it's one of the Ascension gates, as is the Crestone Baca area. Much of the British Isles, a major section of Iceland, a section of Greenland, many small but potent sections of Egypt, Rennes-le-Chateau, southern France, the Tibetan Himalaya, the whole thing, I don't know, but some part of it anyway. Mount Ararat region, Turkey, portions of Greece, most of the Hawaiian Islands, including some now below the water. Again, this is just a little smidgen of an idea of how some of the bigger places that are going. The sacred geometry of these regions, when translated onto a spiritual elemental map, are triangular in nature, but not in arrangement of their spatial dimension in the present Earth reality. I don't exactly understand what that means, so we're going to pretend I didn't read it. Okay. Some of the golden TAYA will experience significant reshaping through cataclysms before LP40 ascension. Now, there's this whole pole shift that everybody's waiting for. I mean, it's already started. And I would like to address that with those, but, how it deals with this, because that was never brought up in any of this stuff. So we'll see, but I want to continue with this right now. Do all the golden TAYA link to form a large temple structure, or are they simply nodal points connected on a grid? Yes, these lands form the Grand Templaric. Their etheric counterpart is the Templamar complex, and that is the grid system that really at the time was the largest of the higher grid systems associated with, ascension, until the pyramid's radius started forming, which is already well on, involved on its way. And the Temple of Mars is still viable, but it's not the largest now, and it's within, everything is within the pyramid's radius now. Okay, so the Valley of the Golden Disk, Crestone Baca, San Luis Valley, assumes the crown center for the Golden TAYA Temple. We now give you a listing of the major chakra centers as they correlate to the Golden TAYA Ascension Temple. So the first one is the base or Kundalini Center, and this is the Hawaiian Islands, center point being the large island Hawaii, or the big island, This is where what we call the royal point of the present Earth, and that is what Hoagland calls 95.5 or something. Probably that's not right. I should not try to quote numbers from somebody else. But, the point at the planet that's similar to the point, the big red spot on one of those planets. Anyway, it seems that all planets have this 9.5 or 95.5 or whatever it is point. And the one on Earth is on the Hawaiian Islands, on the Big Island. And Thoth calls it the royal point. On all these planets and everything, it's the point where everything kind of comes together and activity is formed. So the royal point on Earth is on the Big Island, and this island is also the base or Kundalini center for the whole Ascension Temple. However, because they are little bitty islands, the area actually spreads out. You have a point, but then it like roils out from there. It spreads out, and so not only about the royal point, but about the fact that it's the base for the Ascension Temple. So it spreads really through the whole island chain, But that's where the point is. Okay, so here we have a pole shift. Okay, it says, with the pole shift, the royal point becomes Rennes-le-Château. Now that's interesting, Rennes-le-Château, France. Now that would be interesting to see what a geologist thinks of that, because that's just out of those rabbit hat. But that's what he's saying here. So maybe we don't really understand exactly what the royal point is. I don't know, but it's an interesting thought. Okay, let's continue. The second chakra, the navel center of this whole Ascension Gate thing, temple, is Rennes-le-Château region, France. Center point being the seed chamber. And this is a location that has a particular energy in it. Okay, the third is the solar plexus center, Sedona, Mogollon Rim, Arizona, center point of the Mogollon Rim. So the center point is on the Mogollon Rim, but it stretches out inclusive of Sedona. The heart center is the fourth, and that's the Grand Tetons region, Wyoming, center point within the Tetons. And Jackson Hole really figures very potently into that. So I'm not sure why it was not mentioned as such here, but anyway. The fifth, throat chakra, Ayers Rock region, Australia, center point, Ayers Rock, which is, of course, Uluru. Sixth, brow chakra, Glastonbury, Crystal Isle region of England, center point, Tor Hill. Now that's the brow center. And the seventh, crown center, is the San Luis Valley, Colorado, center point, Crestone Baca. Really, probably more specifically, I would say probably the crest and the stone here, because it seems to be the point of everything here. And I am receiving that would be the case. Okay, now, 2 more chakra centers, and thus ascension gates, will open for the Earth just prior to LP40. These are the 2 Metatronic pillars named here as Osiris and Isis. So the 8th is the Osiris Center, which is Dead Sea, Mount Sinai region of the Middle East, center point, excuse me, near the Dead Sea. And the 9th is Isis Center, Easter Island. as I was saying, Easter Island, region of the Pacific Ocean. The center point being on Easter Island. There are 3 more ascension gates oriented to the capstone of the Metatronic Temple. The 10th is the Sheba Gate, Ethiopia, a region not far from Addis Ababa. I can't say that. Ababa, I guess. Center point not clearly defined on a map. 11th is Thunderbird Gate, Alaska, region of Denali, Manatuska Valley, center point Denali, or Mount McKinley. And the 12th is the Zion Gate, Zion National Park, region of Utah, center point, the Great White Throne. It is important to understand that these areas perform specific grid functions for the entire Golden TAYA ascension dynamic. At the time of LP40, a soul in one of these regions listed as ascension gates will not be more ascended than a soul in any other Golden TAYA area. Souls in the ascension gate areas will, however, undergo specific experiences unique to that gate's function prior to LP40 and during the LP40 lifting process. Well, again, lifting, it is in parentheses here because it's not going to be floating up into the air. So the question next is, can you give us some information on the specific function of the Crestone San Luis Valley Crown Gate and what we might experience here as an example of what these specific functions and experiences might be? So the saying, the Crown Gate serves as a meeting point between human and Devic experience, both merging with angelic consciousness, bringing these threefold into an experiential reality. This will be a place of transformation for many back into their original future physical forms through their Sonoma bloodlines. That's a whole other topic I'm not going to get into here. Many humans will be drawn here to transmorph into their fairy elfin bodies or variations thereof. A strong connection will develop between the Valley of the Golden Disk, both Tibet and Great Britain. The masters and high Davids from these 2 other planetary regions will merge with consciousness fields unfolding in the Golden Disk area. The Tibetan connection is already very strong, with the Celtic Davic soon to be manifesting more strongly through the dream corridor established by the Native Americans. The Crown Gate is the place of Davic angelic infusion through the sacred blood energetic into the physical elementation. Well, again, I haven't read this in years, so I'm kind of looking at it and contemplating it. But I do see one thing that I wanted to bring up here, and that is when we're getting ready to, take the body up with us into the next stage, what body are we really taking? You see, we see the body we're in now, like I'm thinking, oh my God, if this happened tomorrow, I want this nearly 69-year-old body to go with me. It's all got, chronic fatigue and blah, blah, blah. I don't think I want to take this body with me. Why do I want to do that? But Thoth explained to me, we're taking the light codes. And in the light codes, we have all these beautiful forms that are not being expressed necessarily on the outside right now. So I could, it's not like I plop into the New Earth star and here I am, in the same condition in this older body and sitting there going, oh, it would not be a fun experience. No. What we're taking are the light codes. And so the physical look that we have can change dramatically. And it can be a lot of different looks too, kind of like in Second Life. You can wear all kinds of different bodies as long as they correspond to the light codes. So the next question is, are there any procedures that individuals living within the Golden TAYA areas can utilize to facilitate the higher etheric work being done to prepare these areas for LP40, that's like Principle 40, the Ascension moment, or to link the vibration of that area to others? Souls in the Golden TAYA regions would do best to focus primarily on their heart ascension and enjoying this personal energetic with those in their immediate consciousness field. There will be certain light workers within these golden sections that will be called upon to perform specific functions, such as anchoring Templar grids, earth healing, etc. Linking with other areas would fall within whatever specific light surface was being given. It might be difficult to correctly give an overall outline for this work, as each golden TAYA area calls forth different functions and directives. Many souls will enter these golden TAYA allotments with their main purpose being to anchor Metatronic light there. And we need to really understand the very first thing that he said here. Souls in the golden TAYA regions would do best to focus primarily on their heart ascension. Well, that means doing your inner work, because we can't just go tripping off into fairyland, healing and restoring and doing everything outwardly. Outwardly doesn't work unless the inward is done. And of course, you all know that. I'm preaching to the choir. But the point is, I just wanted to stress that heart ascension is where it's at. Would it be appropriate for the souls now consciously anchoring light in these areas to leave the areas for any prolonged period of time? They should be selective in their trips outside of the regions, but often it may be part of their function to connect that particular light encoding with other regions and souls. It may be best that journeys outside the golden TAYA region be for specific light work. Now, this really doesn't address the whole picture. Thoth was addressing what we wanted to know at that time, because we were living in a golden TAYA area, and we had no intention of moving at that time, but we were wanting to make trips outwardly, and we wanted to know about it. So that's what was being addressed here. But the bigger picture of addressing it is that you can't stay glued to a place because you think, well, this is a golden TAYA, so I've got to stay here. You have to follow your inner accord. Where do you need to be? Where do you need to be living at the time? Where do you need to be going? What do you need to be doing? If you're following your heart light, that's all that matters. You don't have to, trace the map. Okay, so then the next question is, about a year ago, you gave the projected time frame for LP40 to be between 2015 and 2025. Does this still appear to be accurate? The projected time frame that was given is a loose projection only, as the Ascension vehicle is built from the components of spirit within the planetary world of consciousness evolving along its return to the stars. This window could well move forward or back in time. It is true that we are not giving definitive information on this timetable, as we do not wish this information to be inserted into the planetary consciousness at this time. Such an event may limit the co-creative participation of the souls involved. The acceleration of the time frame will primarily depend on the heart ascension principle. We could give you information on this alignment as part of a program to teach others, but even so, it would not guarantee the heart ascension. It would only be a guideline of its true pathing. The question: it would seem apparent from the above information that first we must be very attuned to that still small voice within us, to where we are being guided to locate, and secondly, that the scenario about to unfold is perhaps even more dramatic than we had engendered in terms of the separation of the two worlds at LP40. Oh, this is a statement that I'm making here. We encourage all to truly understand the depths to which our compassion for others must reach as the events related to this transformation unfold, as there will be many souls needing that compassion. Open your hearts and ask to receive the gift of the dove. Compassion for others is the perfect vehicle to raise your heart consciousness. Learn what true compassion truly means. Do you feel a lightness and tingling sensation when giving to others, or does it feel like a painful experience at times? Understand that if there is heaviness in the giving, then there is some area of your unconscious self, elemental, magnetic, that is not in alignment with the heart-centered intent of the higher self. practice the unified heart chakra meditation. And this is something that Simeon was very into from the Ascension Handbook by Tony Stubbs. So that was something that he added to our statement here. And know that with the infusion of the heart energy, all else will be transformed. There is a vast bank of information that has been transmitted through me over the last 20 plus years that's saying this in 1995, which some of the above information is based on. Anyone wishing further information is encouraged to write or call us here in the Valley of the Golden Disc. And so that concludes that particular reading. Of course, I have asked myself through the years about all my material, which is now going on 50 plus. There's so much specific stuff in it, and it had been given names, you know, things like golden TAYA and whatever. But the names you can just put aside because those names were given to me. They could be called something else by other people, and it wouldn't make it any less valid. But the information, now a large part of the information, how large I haven't really, you know, divvied it out to say, but some important basic stuff. Now, by the time we've reached the 21st century and now 2017, 18, you know, is out there in other forms. And this is exciting to me. You know, I'm seeing it as science that's being discovered, and a lot of things of scientific nature, the quantum physics, all of that I didn't even know what to call it in the olden days. All of this has come forth, and a lot of the things on the Ascension principles are coming forth from other channels or other sources, and really they're the same thing. They don't necessarily, you know, follow chapter verse, but they're in the same ballpark, and some of them are very much the same as what I received back when, through all of these years, and still receiving. However, there's a large forest of it that nobody's ever talked about but me. Still, of course, you know, it's only been 50 years. So what's coming up next, you know? And I don't know what to say about that other than maybe it's just wait for it, you know. Others will be coming along with it. Or maybe that's not it. Maybe there's other reasons why only I'm talking about this. Maybe it's because I'm talking gibberish and it's not even real, you know. That's certainly a possibility, one that makes my little heart quake. But it's a possibility, you know. Or maybe there are other reasons that I can't even, you know, I'm not going to try to go into that mental warp to figure out. All I can tell you is this is my life's work. I do it, I write it, I talk about it, I share it with you. And that's just the bottom line. I'm not trying to make it real or unreal. It's just there in front of me. It is in my being. I share it. And of course, there's this little thing about timelines and alternate realities. And Thoth has said in the past, in general, speaking in general about life in general and what all of these things that are coming into our periphery. This channel says this channel says that, this channel, just on one subject, you can get 50 different people talking about 50 different ways we're going to ascend. And then there are things that do connect between them all. But, you know, a lot of it is very confusing because of that. So Thoth has said in general about all information on all these topics, we must choose the reality that we wish to project and to move toward. And so given that statement, I'm going to move to another little bit of information here. Well, I changed my mind about going to that next thing, as that really entails something else that I want to be presenting. So I'm going to leave that off. But just suffice to say that we are living in a holographic universe, among many holographic universes. And we are working with multiple timelines. and trying to organize them and bring them back into what Thoth calls the Rana time flow, which is not a timeline. It's a flow that allows you to organize your timelines and get them in sync with returning to source. So in doing so, let's just say we have A, B, and C, okay? We have 3 different realities. We have a lot more than that, but we're going to do A, B, and C on the ascension path, okay? A is one kind of ascension. They have all this information. This is how it happens, blah, blah, blah. B, same thing, but completely different or mostly different. And C, some things, but again, different. And you have 3 of them. Now, let's assume, for the sake of this conversation here, this one-way conversation, that all of these are viable. There's stuff out there that's just plain person talking, channeling themselves, their wishes, their desires, whatever, and that gets in the way of a lot of what's coming through. And that could be true of me too. You know, I'm not leaving myself out, but the point is, there's some people that are just not really doing much of anything but just bringing up their own mental energies, and they're just flowing through them and selecting things that unconsciously that seem to be right. Unfortunately, that's true. But for the most part, some degree, some aspect of what is being quote unquote channeled has a true timeline connection. So let's go back to our A, B, and C. Let's say they're pretty right on connecting to a timeline where this reality will take place. So it's up to you to choose which reality of A, B, and C, we're just limiting it to that for here, that you wish to choose. Now, what if A has a little bit that you'd like to choose, but not all of it? B has a little bit that you'd like to choose, but not all of it. And C, forget C. So you concoct your own mixture. You say, well, I'm going to take this, I'm going to take that. And you know, I have this inner feeling of my own, and I'm going to take that, and I'm going to put it together, and this is the path I choose. And that path, maybe 20 years later, you go, oh, well, you know, I chose that, but you know, I'm going to switch it now. I'm going to put this in here. Now, this seems a little haphazard, but not really, because your soul is organizing, it's shifting, it's growing, it's a work in progress in regard to what you're really seeing, feeling, and expanding the knowledge of. And so that's the way it works. And if you allow that process and don't get caught up with, oh my gosh, what if I choose the wrong thing? Or is this really real? What about this? Which one's real and which one isn't? You know, you just get yourself all tied up in this oratronic half-light spitball. You know, and it's like you just have to turn loose of that and go to your divine being. Does this feel right to me in the moment? Okay, I'm accepting it now because it feels right to me in the moment. That's the way that we get from point A to point infinity, according to what I understand, how I understand it from all the work I've done with Thoth and the Kasha and whatever, and my own inner feelings. So I'm just sharing that with you. So I believe I will conclude this episode of the Golden TAYA. There's at least one more to come. Thank you for listening.